Is Pam and Dan Witkowski. And welcome everybody to our Zoom live event via the virtual web, right? This was supposed to be a live event, but as we all know, we are quarantined to our homes, and so we wanted to still bring this information to you. So we really appreciate you being on. And I thought that maybe Dan could just start just briefly, just give us a little bit of words as a healthcare worker. Dan, try to keep people at ease. What is it that they can do? Just really quick, as we are, like I said, all quarantined to our homes.
Well, the most important thing is stay calm. Just don't get excited. Don't sit and watch the news 24/7. Things are changing minute to minute, hour to hour. Just stay calm. But most importantly, too, do what they ask us to do. And we have so many great people in this country that really have worked very hard at trying to understand what's going on. And when they tell us to do something, as things might get a little worse before it gets better, just follow the orders, just follow what they do. But most importantly, stay calm.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We are talking tonight about what the best diet, what the best nutrition plan is. A lot of fad diets out there, a lot of confusion, and hopefully we can set the record straight. And this is the nutrition plan we've known all along. That is the best one. There you go.
2 years after my father died, I found his wallet. And this is his wallet. This is, you can see it, his Harvard ID card. I even have his MasterCard from Liberty Bay, his Tufts ID card. So this was his wallet that I found 2 years after he died. 15 years after my father died, he had quintuple bypass surgery. That's when they take an electric saw and they actually saw your chest open to expose your heart so that they can harvest a vessel from your leg and put it to bypass a vessel that's diseased on your heart. Sounds pretty dramatic, and it really is. 2 years before my father died, he had below-the-knee amputation from complications he had from diabetes. But when I opened my father's wallet, I found this piece of paper. And it was this piece of paper that when I opened it, I couldn't believe what I found. It was a list of the medications that my father was on when he died. Lantus, Imdor, Cardizem, Lopressor, Simvastatin, Clonidine, Lasix, Plavix, Allopurinol, Elavil, Combivent, Cosep, all these medications that my father had to be on. The list is really 17 medications deep. That hit me right between the eyes. I couldn't believe my father was going to see some of the greatest doctors that we know right here in Boston. And when he went to see those doctors, not one of them talked to him about what his nutrition plan was. When he was diagnosed with these conditions and had these procedures, when he was leaving the hospital, no one wanted to know what his lifestyle was really like. No one even asked him maybe what his goals were for the next 15 or 20 years. And in 1992, my mother Doris was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. And in 1994, the day after her birthday, almost 2 years to the day, she lost her battle. And here I am. I'm the son of the doctor. I even was trained in obstetrics and gynecology. I knew the science of this disease. I knew the biology, the pathophysiology. I knew the treatments for this disease, the pharmacology. And yet I didn't even know the basic nutrition and lifestyle changes that my mother could have made when she was fighting for her life during those 2 years that would have enabled her to battle this even better, and maybe even enabled her to live longer with this condition. And then me as a father, raising my children. Pamela and I have 6 children. And when I was raising them, as I was a young doctor, just a young parent, what did I do? I just kept doing the things I knew to do. I just kept doing what I was taught, what I learned from my family. And I just ate the foods I normally ate, did all the lifestyle things that I normally did. Little did I know that these foods were toxic, or these foods even had disease-promoting properties. And here I am giving it to my kids. But I didn't know then what I know now. And my patients, as I started to practice in a private practice when I finished my residency, that was really the first time I was able to follow patients over a period of time. In residency, you work in clinics, you don't really get to develop a relationship with your patients. But as I started developing that relationship, they started asking me questions like about why they're gaining weight. They thought maybe it was some hormonal thing, or why are they getting put on medication for these diseases, these chronic conditions like my father was having, like high blood pressure medicine, or high cholesterol medicine, or high sugar medication. And they didn't understand it. They would ask me questions, but I didn't learn either in medical school what this was all about. What was it that they were doing that caused them and led them to these chronic diseases? So Pamela and I, we went all over the country then on a journey to try to figure out what it is that I didn't learn in medical school that I was craving, that I really thought that I needed to learn something else where I can significantly help people and really change their lives, be a difference maker in their lives. So we thought maybe it was preventative medicine. We went to integrative medicine conferences, functional medicine conferences, but what it was, I found lifestyle medicine. And when I found lifestyle medicine, that really resonated with me. Lifestyle medicine is where they use evidence-based lifestyle changes that make a difference or even can prevent, treat, or even reverse chronic diseases. These are diseases that are killing over 80% of all Americans. Diseases like heart disease, which should never even exist, or diabetes, or obesity, which is becoming such an epidemic in this country, and even cancer. Cancer like my mother had. And these chronic diseases are really choices, are from choices that we make in our lifestyle. So when I was on a plane flying down to Florida to watch my son Nathan play baseball, and this was back in 2010, I had this book called The China Study. And flying from Boston to Orlando, it was about 3 hours and 15 minutes. I plowed through that book. I couldn't believe what I was reading. This was such great information for me that I never knew anything about. And when I don't travel with Pamela, because I was going down to see Nathan with my father-in-law, Bob, when we get off the plane, what we like to do is text each other. So when I landed in Orlando, I text Pamela, I just became a vegetarian. Not even really knowing what that means, but I asked her, are you all in? And she texted me back, I'm in. So I knew that we had decided that we were going to change the way we were. We were going to make these lifestyle changes so that I can be that lifestyle medicine doctor, that I can walk the walk and not just talk the talk, but I could be that example for the patients and then even influence them to help them on their journey. So it was really important that we decided and then made those moves to walk that walk. And everyone on the Zoom call tonight can do the same thing. First, just decide that you're going to go on a new journey, a journey in your life, and really explore what it means to prevent and even reverse some of these conditions that many of you might have or even know people that might have them. And then find a mentor. Find somebody that you can really relate with. And whether or not that mentor has written a book, and you can see, I brought some of my library of books here of people that have been my mentors. Because when I surrounded myself with people of lifestyle medicine, people like David Katz, who writes books on clinical nutrition that they teach at Yale Medical School, or people like Dean Ornish, who has a great clinic in Sausalito, California, where he's reversing people's chronic diseases, does a lot of work on research in prostate cancer, the leading cancer in men, or people like Caldwell Esselstyn. And it was really when I met Caldwell Esselstyn back in 2008, after he just finished writing this book, that I really started, it really resonated with me that lifestyle medicine was important, because he told his story of his journey as a cancer surgeon for thyroid and breast cancer. He felt as though he wasn't making a difference with his patients either, and he needed to do something else. He wanted to try to figure out that nutrition was really the answer to cancer, and he was right. But he knew he would have a huge impact, because when he did his work back in the late 80s, heart disease was the leading killer of men and women. So he applied his principles to heart disease, did his studies, and then wrote this book so that we can all understand really how to prevent and even reverse heart disease. Quite a powerful book. And then finally, someone like John McDougall out of California also, where John really teaches people, again, how to eat plant-based nutrition and really prevent all of the chronic diseases that are killing 80% of Americans. And so that's what you can do. Find a mentor. And then once you find that mentor, follow that mentor. Read the books that they have written, and then even go on their websites and see what they have to offer. And then you got to really look at the foods that you're eating, and you really have to find out the truth about what it is in your foods that you've chosen, your nutrition plan that you've chosen. Not just what you might find on the internet, but what is the truth behind that food? Is that food toxic to you? Does that food really provide the nutrients, the nutrient density with the phytonutrients, the plant-based nutrients, all the antioxidants, or is it just fake food because it's been processed so much that sometimes they even have to add the nutrients back into it to try to even call it food and sell it as food? And then lastly, it's, everybody on this Zoom call, really, now that you are starting to learn this information and you have this interest in this information and you start along your journey, it's almost an obligation that we all have now to share it with everybody else that we love or everybody that we know might have some of these conditions. Wouldn't you love it if your doctor was on this Zoom call too with you, or you had a loved one sitting next to you listening to this information that you're going to hear tonight? And then if we do other Zoom calls, how else we're going to share other information to bring us all along this journey. This is a very historic times in many ways. And now plant-based nutrition and even lifestyle medicine is really catching on. It started with just a little ripple, but now it's getting to be a big wave in this country.
So one of the things that we did when we decided that we were going to be on this journey, again, we didn't know what it was going to be. Dan Ridley didn't even know what vegetarian was. And, I didn't want to have, the fear of missing out, some FOMO. So I'm like, sure, I'll do it with you. But we had to decide. What we did is we broke up with dairy. That was the first thing that we did.
Remember.
And we did it right in this kitchen. We had a gallon of milk. We have a lot of kids, and we used to buy, like many of you family, people who have families know, like you have especially a lot of adolescent, boys and athletes, like milk. It's all about that, right? Chocolate milk after working out and all that. But we had milk. We took it and we dumped it down the sink.
Like a ceremony.
It was like exactly ceremonious. And that was the last time that we had milk. That was 8-9 years ago.
Maybe, yeah, about 10 years ago.
8-9, now going on probably 10 years ago, right, that we did that. But that was the decision we made. We never, that was it. It was like a line in the sand. This is not something that you're going to do overnight. We're still on that journey. We don't do it all at once. Like all of a sudden, one day you become plant-based and that's it, and you're going to eat perfectly for the rest of your life. It doesn't work that way, but you do have to make that decision and do something and decide on what one thing are you going to change tomorrow. And you can do it tomorrow. I mean, we recommend breaking up with dairy just because we know how much you love it. And the dairy includes, Dan,
milk and butter,
Right.
yogurt, ice cream, and the big killer, cheese. And that's really been killing so many Americans. And when you think about the big five, those big five dairy products, if you just took those out of your life, what it would do with the amount of saturated fat that you get, because dairy products have a lot of saturated fat, how much sugar, and a lot of people don't realize how much sugar there is in dairy products. Dairy, everyone knows a lot about lactose, but it also has another sugar called galactose. And both lactose and galactose provide so much sugar. When you look at even a plain canister or plain cup of yogurt that you buy in the supermarket, plain yogurt even has 8 grams of sugar in it. And 4,
even Greek yogurt?
Even Greek yogurt. But 4 grams is 1 teaspoon. So just imagine 2 teaspoons of sugar going into that little cup of yogurt that you just bought, that little container of yogurt. That's a lot of sugar. And the last thing is the protein, the wrong protein. The casein protein that's in milk products is really a growth hormone, a growth promoter, I should say. And we're not going to grow anymore this way. That's the way we're going to grow. And it really isn't something that our bodies are accustomed to. Our mother's breast milk was 20% casein protein and 80% whey protein. And that 20% of casein protein that we were exposed to as infants in the first year of our life doubled our size. It made us grow double our size. Well, cow milk has 80% casein protein, only 20% whey protein, because that little baby calf has to become a big cow in 1 year. So it needs all that growth promotion. We don't need it. And God forbid, if we expose that type of growth promotion to cells in our body that might not be the ones we want, like my mother had, those cells that are abnormal, then we start promoting their growth, can be a real disaster for us. So breaking up with dairy is something that everyone can do. It's just not natural anyways. So maybe that would be the very first best step that everyone can try.
And then, finding out the truth. And, you got to decide too whether you're going to get your truth, quote unquote, from family circle and, your neighbor, or, from the evidence out there. And for Dan, being, a medical doctor, a health worker, he needs to give his patients advice based on evidence.
Based on the science.
Exactly. And so, and again, like you've got to find out who those people are who you're going to seek out the truth. Now Dr. Dan, so you can always refer to him and ask him. He's always open to answering any questions or dispelling any myths or getting you on the right path. But here's just a great question to ask anybody like myself. I mean, I'm a lay person, so I don't always know. So somebody can say something to me, even a medical doctor can say something that, about nutrition, a lifestyle, and it may not just sound right, or maybe I want to know more about it and really seek the truth and make sure it is the truth before I adopt it. And just say, that sounds really interesting. Where can I learn more about that? So, I mean, if anybody,
that's a great question.
Well, if especially a doctor, if they're telling you some information and making it like it is fact, you want to make sure they can back it up.
Right. They should know their resources. So
yeah.
They should share them with you.
Yes.
So when patients are asking me about plant-based nutrition or plant-forward nutrition, it doesn't have to be like all or nothing. We also talk about labels a lot. We talk about being vegan. And so many of us know that that's just a label. It doesn't really mean. There's a lot of poor choices that are for nutrition or for food that is still vegan. So really putting a label on anything isn't what we're really all about. And then we think about other kinds of diets too. I mean, when you try to look at some of the newer diets, the fad diets that are out there, whether it's ketogenic diets or it's
low fat, low
paleo
carb,
diets,
paleo,
all those diets,
yeah.
It really comes down to, if you're going to try one of those diets, measure it up against what I would call the default diet, the only diet that's been shown not only to prevent, but to treat and even reverse chronic diseases, and that's the plant-based diet, the whole food plant-based diet. These paleo diets, or primal diets or keto diets, what they primarily do is get people off processed food. That's the
Which is
big
a good
difference.
thing. That's
Right.
a great thing.
It is a great
right?
thing, but they come with a lot of baggage.
Mhm.
Whether or not you're then trying to get this high-fat ketogenic state that you want to get into, and you're using a lot of animal products, it comes with baggage, that saturated fat, all of those proteins that are in animal products that our bodies don't need. What our bodies need, and if you really think down to the cellular level, in order for our bodies to be alive and invigorated and have vitality and all our cells to be functioning and firing the way they should, we really need all of those micronutrients, those nutrients that you find in plants, the antioxidants, the phytonutrients that are in plants that give plants all their color, like on this display that we have behind us. That's when you know you're getting the nutrients that your body needs. If you eat a animal-based diet, let's just say, and you look at your plate, it looks very monochromatic. It looks like there's no color. It's either all gray or all brown, or maybe all pinky red or whatever, but it doesn't have the greens, the yellows, the really good, rich colors that give the plants their antioxidant activity so they can live under that radiant sun, but it also gives us those antioxidants and those phytonutrients and those micronutrients to allow our cells to function at their best.
So do you mind if somebody calls you vegan?
Well, I don't mind, but I try to correct them because I'm really not vegan. And it's really not an all or nothing when you're talking about nutrition plans, because there's traditions that we all have, or there's celebrations that we all like to participate in. Like, I like to have turkey on Thanksgiving, and people know I have turkey on Thanksgiving. I have 7 fishes on Christmas Eve. Pamela and I enjoy lobster on New Year's Eve, and we've been making Peking duck. And I love slicing Peking duck. It's just so much fun. I'm getting better and better every year. But we've been making Peking duck for the last 25 years. And so, there's times that we always will continue to keep our traditions, like a little piece of kielbasa on Easter, or maybe the colored Easter eggs with our grandchildren. But those are the types of things that we like to participate in. Does it mean we're vegan? No. Those 5 to 6 days, I just broke all the vegan rules. No, I'm not vegan.
But there's also a lot of vegan processed foods, unhealthy vegan foods.
Right.
Potato chips are vegan.
Right.
But so it doesn't really tell anybody the information about what you're really eating. No. We're plant-based. That's what we predominantly eat.
Forward,
day in and day out.
Right.
And again, because the evidence supports that as being the best nutrition plan.
And when you look at the studies that really examine the different types of diets that are around the world, and one of the greatest books that was written by a fellow named Dan Buettner. And Dan Buettner was a National Geographic journalist. But Dan traveled the world and noticed, while he was doing his journalism for National Geographic, that there were pockets in the world that people had a certain lifestyle, they ate a certain way, they lived a certain way, they exercised or they had physical activity in a certain way, and they lived well past 110, where people in that community all lived past 110. And he called them the blue zones. And if you want to go on bluezones.com, you can learn more. And he lists the 9 commonalities of those 5 blue zones that we can all even follow, but not one of the blue zones is vegan or plant perfect. They're all very plant strong, and the majority, in the 85 to 90% of what they eat, is all plants, and they grow most of them themselves, but they do have some animal products, especially for celebrations and for gatherings when they're celebrating something or really having a traditional meal.
There's only one of those in the United States.
That's right. It's Loma Linda, California.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is that we knew when we started to go on this journey. Now we had, Dan had, he hooked me in, right? So we had each other, but Oh, wait a second. Somebody's saying, oh, somebody's chatting. They're sending us a message. This is like all new to me. Oh, yeah, I love that study. It's great. There's also a Blue Zones cookbook we just got for Christmas. And
it just came out in December.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it just gives a few recipes from each of the Blue Zones. So if you enjoy ethnic cooking, which we love to do, and so you can get some Japanese recipes, some Indian recipes, where else are they from?
From South America, right? Central America.
Delicious. Really great.
And even
so
Okinawa, Japan.
I highly recommend the Blue Zones cookbook. But
it really is the default diet, the plant-based or the whole food plant-based diet. Mm-hmm. And when you look at many of the diets, the traditional diets that the Blue Zone folks are eating, or even the Mediterranean diet that so many doctors recommend, and really can be defined in so many different ways. But there are some researchers that have really tried to put their hands around, like people like David Katz, really put their hands around what truly is the Mediterranean diet. It's not just putting olive oil over the salad and making it heart healthy. It's really about how much of that olive oil do you eat every single day or even every week. How many eggs are really healthy for you and not to surpass that. But there's people that study this, but it all really comes down to these traditional diets being plant-based or plant-strong. Many of them, over 85 to 90% of the calories comes from plants.
And yeah, just do you eat eggs? Somebody asked. Yeah, occasionally, like Dan said, for Easter we share eggs, we color eggs, and we make them. But again, day in and day out, we do not eat eggs.
And looking at the data, and it's been studied over and over again. The Nurses' Health Study is one of the longest running nutritional studies right here at Harvard Medical School. Walter Willett is one of the researchers that compile all the data. And I know Walter Willett. When I speak with Walter Willett, I've asked him this over and over again. How many eggs is too many eggs? Because there are so many people that eat eggs, and even many nutritionists that recommend eggs, especially to diabetics, which is really one of the biggest catastrophes that could happen. But Walter says that the data for people that are not diabetic, the data seems that 5 is the magic number. 5 eggs a week will keep you safe, won't increase your risk for things like these chronic diseases, diabetes being the one that is the most influenced by eating too many eggs.
So there you go. There's a reference for you if you want to learn more yourself about that. And
Eat, Drink, and Be Healthy. He wrote this book, I believe, back in the late 90s or early 2000s. And he is always publishing on the web. But Walter Willett is a great resource.
He's like the godfather of lifestyle medicine.
Well, he's one of the probably the most published nutritionist in the world, with over 1,700 nutrition articles in peer-reviewed journals on nutrition. So, I mean, he's got a library for that he's written himself on nutrition.
Okay, great, awesome. I wanted to go back to sharing and getting that community. That is really important to do, because this is a team sport. And it's not something that you're going to do by yourself. Now, what you're going to probably do is if you wanted to, again, decide to make these changes and go on this journey, you may look to some family member. And sometimes they're, not very willing, they're not ready. And, but that's fine. That's fine. But you've got to find a buddy. So now you have us. I mean, we can be your buddy. Yeah. But you do have to find somebody, because you're going to want to exchange ideas. You're going to want to talk about challenges. You're going to want to, relish in your successes. And it's just something that is vital, and just community anyway is just vital.
Right. One of the things they found, or they talk about with the Blue Zones, has to be with that community allowing accountability. When you are accountable to somebody, or you have to show up almost weekly, or it could even be a few times a week with a certain person, and that person wants to see you vibrant and healthy and happy, and you have to keep your own vitality alive so that you actually can be there for that person too.
Our kids are in the background. They're saying, look at each other, stand back, do this, do that.
Oh, wow.
It's not about perfection, right? It's just about progress.
As we started to get ourselves deeper and deeper into this journey, we knew we had to develop some way that we could help others too get on our path of lifestyle medicine and lifestyle design. MD was born.
Right. Well, that's why we just created our own community. And so what's really funny is that we got to really get these dates. It's either 9 or 10 years ago.
I think it's 10 years ago, because it was 2010 when I flew down, and it was when I came back from that trip to Orlando with your father that we'd ceremoniously dumped the milk. So that really was when we took that first step. Yeah.
So then we established Lifestyle Design MD. We actually opened up a separate office in Wakefield, and we were doing it, because Dan, as you know, he's a full-time OBGYN, and he's been in, practice for 27 years. So we had to do this, separately, because people aren't coming into his office looking for, necessarily looking for lifestyle information, and he's busy delivering OBGYN, right, to them. And so we opened it there, and then we just opened a little Facebook page, and had like a handful of followers, mostly our family and friends, that we cajoled into following Dan's page. And then word got out in the lifestyle community that locally that Dan was doing this, and he was asked to do a continuing medical education, a seminar for medical doctors and health professionals on how to grow a virtual lifestyle community. Right? And we had 100 likes on the Facebook page. And he went to the experts, and he went to Harvard University, and he delivered that talk. Again, people heard more about it. He had residents from Yale Medical School
that rotated through the lifestyle medicine practice
to come and see
so
our
some clinical experience.
Our this practice that he had down in Wakefield, Massachusetts, with a handful of patients, and but
what we did was we had to set up also what the pillars were going to be for Lifestyle Design MD. What were we going to help our community with?
Because it's a big.
Because lifestyle medicine can be a lot. Lifestyle medicine is, the foundation is all about nutrition and how well you care for this body and what you put inside this body, because we are what we eat. And so nutrition really was, had to be the foundation. And what happened was I knew nothing about nutrition, so I went out and I became a nutritionist. I had to get to be a certified nutritionist through Cornell University, through their eCornell site. And then I said, well, I'm walking the walk. How else can I really learn how to be a lifestyle medicine doctor? And I went and I became board certified in lifestyle medicine. There's only a couple of hundred or several hundred doctors in America that are board certified in lifestyle medicine.
Now I think maybe it's up to maybe 500.
I'm just saying several hundred. But then I said, what else can I really do to really bury myself, really become part of this movement? And I became a fellow of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which I really am the most proud, because there's only a few dozen of those in the whole world. And so Pamela and I formed this Lifestyle Design MD, based on lifestyle medicine's pillars. So we really concentrate on nutrition and physical activity, which we really believe are the two that really get somebody's body awake and alive and healthy again. And then how do you maintain that? Well, it takes some restoration too. So not just nutrition and physical activity, but also restoration. How do you restore your body with sleep, or with being more mindful, or at least, trying to turn down sometimes your mind in a busy day through meditation or through other types of exercises that include meditation, like yoga. So how do you incorporate these things into your life for that restoration? and then community. And how do you set up these communities so that we can have accountability, whether it's through a Facebook group, whether it's through doing Zoom calls like these, or even having presentations in certain activities at different locations to bring people together, like-minded people together, so that we can enrich ourselves and we can find ways and help each other on ways that we can live this life as full as we can, so that we can keep living and die rather than becoming decrepit and dependent. And then our last 10 years of our lives aren't really the way we planned them. So it's not really about giving yourself more years on your life, but it's really about how's that last 10 years going to look? How can we put more life in your years? And it really takes a little effort. It does take some time. It does take a little planning, and it takes a little education. But
it's fun.
And it's fun.
The thing
we
is,
have a lot of fun doing
It's fun experimenting with new recipes and, exchanging ideas and food and finding, restaurants that can accommodate, the way we eat. And it takes a village, absolutely. And then the physical activity, there's just a myriad of ways that you can get that fitness in. And like today we did, because, the gym's closed. My son Nate has a gym in Malden and the doors are closed. At midnight tonight, Board of Health, nothing. You can't have anybody over there.
Not even singles.
No. So he's doing virtual workout. So today, a bunch of us, we were here, put on the Zoom, and we did a virtual workout. And there's like tons of other trainers that are doing that. And restoration, how much fun that is to just take a,
bring it down,
chill,
it could be a trip somewhere.
It might be a
to
trip,
the mountains,
might be
to
a
the
walk.
woods. It could be the water. A lot of people like to go by the water.
But it's being mindful of that and actually
understanding you just can't keep
building
going.
It in.
You've got to give your body, your cells, your mind a chance to restore, a chance to relax.
But you've got to schedule it in, and you've got to make it a habit until you're not even thinking about it anymore. It's just part of who you are. Yes. Speaking of restaurants, somebody has a question. We love the restaurant questions, so keep them coming. And then getting that community. And again, you got that community with us. Like, we'll be it for you if you're trying to find yours. Is it a virtual community? Not everybody's on Facebook or Instagram, but if you are, there's lots of communities there. And then locally, start your own. Do a meetup, have friends over for dinner, have a potluck, exchange some ideas and recipes, and make it fun.
One of the things that we did when we were starting to really design this lifestyle design MD was, how are we going to help people with their nutrition? As I said, that's the foundation. So we developed a few techniques, if you will, or guidance that I think can simplify how to eat a plant-based diet. And it doesn't mean, again, that you have to eat only plants. But when you're eating a plant-based diet, one of the best things you can do is think about when you were growing up. I can tell you, my mother probably had about 5 or 6 dinners that she would make and rotate every single day of the week. Whether it was Wednesday night, we had pasta. Whether it was Thursday night, we had pork chops. Whether it was Sunday, we had a roast beef. It was always these same meals over and over. We almost looked forward to certain meals because my mother was good at those, or better at those than she was at others. But I can remember that it was really just a few meals that were rotated. So Pamela and I came up with the 3-4-5 meal plan. Now, the 3-4-5 meal plan means that these are your go-to meals, and they include 3 breakfasts. Like most people know that I eat an oat bowl every morning with lots of nuts and seeds and all kinds of great fixins in it. But that keeps me satiated for the morning. Busy mornings, most of my mornings.
It just takes the thinking. It takes the thinking out of it. Dan doesn't have to think about what he's going to eat. It's all there. It's ready to go. He just makes it up. And I'm the same way. Day in and day out, I eat the exact same thing for breakfast.
But we have these 3 breakfasts, these 4 lunches, for example, and then like these 5 dinners that you can keep in your pantry, the ingredients for them, or keep them in your refrigerator. But that when you get home, let's say after a busy day of work, and you say, oh, gee, I don't have any time to make anything, let's call out for something. No, you just take a deep breath, calm it down, and say, which of the 5 dinners that I know I can make because I have the ingredients.
Right.
I know I can put them together. For example, some of ours are like our lentil loaf that we make, that we have the recipe for this lentil loaf that's outstanding. And if we ever just kind of want to make it, it takes us a few minutes to just put it together.
We always have the
lentils.
ingredients.
We always have all the ingredients.
We have the ingredients to make a taco bar,
That's right.
a pastability bar. We have rice bowls if we want to do that. We have those things that we, regularly eating. We always have the ingredients for that so that we're never stuck with what to make. But they may be different for you than they are for us. So it's deciding again for yourself, like, maybe you want to,
what you like.
Well, maybe you want to be like us and only have, just 1 or 2 different breakfasts, and, variety isn't necessarily the spice of life when it comes to being healthy and, oh, sure, we'll give you the recipes.
We'll post
Absolutely.
some recipes.
Yeah, anything you want. But
this 3, 4, 5 just keeps it real simple. And when you think about what these recipes are, they're really based around 4 food groups. Right. Most nutritionists that get trained talk about the 3 macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. One of my pet peeves is we don't eat carbohydrates or we don't eat fats. Many times I'll talk to people about what they're eating or maybe making suggestions on how to create a meal plan, and they're like, no, I stay away from carbs. Well, yeah, that's true if they're processed carbs, but carbohydrates, like John McDougall, who wrote The Starch Solution, carbohydrates are really what our bodies run on. It's how those carbohydrates are taken in by our bodies. Are they taken in by the whole plant, or is it a processed carbohydrate, a processed food, which your body recognizes completely different? It's the way nature put those carbohydrates with the fiber that enables us to digest it differently so that it goes into our bloodstream, it gets into our body. We actually absorb it very differently. So that really does help us keep our blood sugars low. And in many cases, we just poop them out because we don't even digest them all the way because of that fiber. So it's really not about trying to find out proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. It's about food groups. And the food groups that we work around are your fruits, your vegetables, your legumes, and your natural grains, I like to call them. Not whole grains, because a lot of people think that's whole grain bread, but natural grains. Grains like quinoa, or grains like oats that I have in the morning, or like the different rices like brown rice, red rice, or black rice. And even nuts and seeds kind of fit into that grain category. So if you just kind of create recipes or even look for recipes that include those 4 food groups, that's how you eat a plant-based diet.
And you won't, if you're eating a variety of those, you won't have to think about those macronutrients.
Right.
Is that right?
That's right, because all foods have all 3 macronutrients. It's
funny to me how we have, it's ironic that we had to teach humans how to eat.
I know.
You don't have to teach animals how to eat,
Like
domesticated animals, But I'm just saying, wild animals out there, they know exactly what they have to eat, and
and you don't see any of them obese.
Right.
You see them lean and mean and full of life.
Yes.
Yes, they do a lot of sleeping and lazing around. They're restoring themselves.
Right.
But when it comes time to really fight, or it is to, to go and chase something, wow, you watch these guys, they just take off in the yard when they're chasing after squirrels. But it's really kind of building on those pillars and building on that nutrition plan, utilizing those 4 food groups, and then creating your pile of food. Your pile of food might be different than our pile of food.
You may like spicy, somebody likes savory, somebody likes something a little sweet, adding cinnamon and different spices and herbs and sauces. Or
maybe you just can't eat beans, or you just hate kale and can't eat kale. That's okay, because there's a lot of green leaves out there that you can enjoy. Then you just have to find the ones that you like. So
the other thing that I bet you guys have heard about this, just like batch cooking, just making sure that you have, you have that, big vat of grains ready to go. We're all busy. So, even waiting to make, some rice, it'll take like 15, 20 minutes may
right.
just be enough to say, I'm not going to make it. We're going to order out. That's it. But have it ready. And
we usually have rice in our refrigerator all the time. I usually make it 3 cups at a time.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that we always
right
have
here,
some.
I have a big batch of red quinoa and a big batch of brown rice. So I know
and it usually lasts 3 to 5 days in your refrigerator, and it stays fresh and it stays delicious. And then it's how you repurpose those foods.
Right.
So if you're making batches, or even if you're making a big meal and you have leftovers, it's getting in the habit of just putting that stuff away, storing it properly, and then repurposing it for another meal. And there's so many creative ways that you can do it. And when it's already cooked or already prepared, it makes it so much easier. And then you're able to eat that plant-based diet without all that prep. All that people say, oh, it's so hard, I don't have the time, or I don't have the knife skills to be able to do all that chopping.
Right.
Well, once you start getting better and better at it through practice, it just gets to be second nature. It gets to be so easy then to repurpose it later.
And if you don't have to necessarily worry about recipes, because any of these things, just eat like the vegetables that you love. Eat the green leafies that you love. Eat the grains that you love. The condiments and just like you can just pile them together.
Yeah, make substitutions.
You don't have to have. But if you are recipe oriented and you're like, I don't know, I need a recipe, that's fine. Put it into the Google, what you have on hand or what you like.
I know, we used to use Pinterest a lot too. Just
Pinterest, but is another one. Just put the keywords in.
I used to yell them out. We'd open the refrigerator door and I'd yell out what we had.
This is what I have.
And Pamela would put it in the Pinterest and all these recipes would come up.
Yeah,
so there really is a lot of resources out there.
It's tons of resources. Also, like if you're somebody, like I like simple. I'm not going to get into a big complicated recipe. So I'll say 15-minute, plant-based recipe, or 15-minute, meatless taco bar or something like that. And so all those things, I want simple, I want easy, I want not a lot of ingredients. So I'll put those keywords in and you will be inundated. You'll have the lifetime of recipes. The other thing,
but keeping it simple again, like we said, keeping a 3, 4, 5 plan, and then experimenting. Let's say we have more time, either a day off from work or on the weekend or some vacation time, experimenting a little bit. But mostly that 3, 4, 5 is what gets you through. The variety can also happen when you go over someone's house. And don't be weird about it. It's not like people have to cook a certain way for you. Let them cook whatever they want, and then you can either pick at what they want, or if your brother, let's say, makes the best smoked ribs, you don't go over and say, I can't have any smoked ribs. Have a smoked rib. It's not going to kill you, but that's not the foundation of the way you eat. Don't eat a whole rack of them. Just have that one smoke to try.
Somebody asked in the chat about protein bars and what we think about protein bars, and we do occasionally use them. What we got, right now we got a frat house here, so we got a lot of kids and
everyone came home from college.
Everybody's home, right? So but we're busy, and sometimes, what do you want to do? You don't want them, them reaching for or going to the store and buying a protein bar that is basically a candy bar, right? So you have some, things on hand. We use red bars. That's just
red bars and RX bars.
Yeah. So that's just,
those seem to be really good.
Just what we,
simple ingredients.
There is one of them at least has some egg whites in it.
They might use some animal product like eggs.
I mean, that's what but there are a lot of vegan options out there. If that's exactly, I hate to use the word vegan, but I'm just saying,
but
totally
if you're against, eating any animal product.
If anybody has any suggestions on that, I'd love to hear about that on the Facebook, or, email me. I'm always open to suggestions of what people use it. We don't really use a lot of them. I probably have a protein bar maybe once a month. So what is that? Thank you for doing this training. You're welcome. We'll do it again. We'll be on next week. If everybody wants us to be on, we can do some demonstrations. We have a myriad of topics that we can cover. If you guys want us to keep on doing these, we love it. The other thing I wanted to say, somebody said about whether we eat tofu. And yes, we do. Tofu is a processed food. So
made from edamame, which is a legume.
Yes, but we do incorporate that. Again, we don't eat it every day. We probably eat it maybe once or twice a week, maybe.
Most of our legumes are our beans, our lentils. We use peas a lot. We have peanuts, which is another great legume.
Yeah.
And if people ask, where do plant-based folks get their protein? Because that's always a big question. And the answer to that is the green leafy vegetables. You know, there are so many animals that eat green leaves primarily as their staple. And I don't think that an elephant is protein deprived or a rhinoceros is protein deprived. If we had a rhino in here, can you imagine that beast? And even if we look at our closest cousin, the chimpanzee, they're plant-based. Yes, they might have occasional meat. If you follow them around in Africa, you'll see they'll eat grubs, or they might find a rodent that they'll eat, but they primarily eat plants, and green leaves is their staple. The other thing that you get protein is the legumes, and legumes are always known to be very protein rich, some more than others, but very protein rich, a great source. Many nutritionists will try to suggest that some of these aren't complete proteins, that they don't have all the essential amino acids that our body needs. Well, in the 70s and 80s, when many people were becoming more vegetarian and vegan, that was a big thing that they were trying to do, is create these complete proteins at every single meal. But what the science has shown us is that's not necessary, that you don't need to get certain combinations in order to get complete proteins. You just need to ingest a lot of different protein-rich foods, like the green leaves, like the legumes, and your body will figure it out. And then the last area where people that eat plant-based get their protein is from the whole grains or the natural grains. These brown rice or quinoa are very protein rich. Now, if you use the processed rice, like the white rice, no, then you just get the carbohydrate. You don't get that husk where all the protein is and all the minerals are.
So somebody just asked in the chat about vitamin D and whether we use vitamin D. Well, I mean, definitely we use vitamin D because, I mean, most people are vitamin D deficient, but, you know, the other thing.
Especially up here in the Northeast. And vitamin D is a hormone, as everyone knows.
Yes, vitamin B as well. Vitamin B, somebody's asking.
Yes, we take vitamin B. And B12 is one of those B vitamins that aren't in many plants. You know, how do people that are omnivores get their B vitamins? It's because the animals have concentrated those B vitamins in their tissue, and when you eat their tissue, you can get their B vitamins. But where do the animals get their B vitamins? Like that cow, that beef that's rich in B12. Cows eat grass. They get it from the dirt that grass is in. B vitamins, B12 is in the dirt. What happens is we wash all our vegetables so much, and I'm not suggesting people shouldn't wash their vegetables because they should, but we wash off all that B12. So when we do that, a small supplement of B12 is really all you need to keep yourself from becoming B12 deficient. But yes, getting back to vitamin D, that hormone that we make on our skin from the sunlight up here in the Northeast, and really anybody at this latitude doesn't get enough sunlight through the ozone because of the deflection of some of the rays in order to really convert enough vitamin D on our skin for our body to use. So especially for your immune system, for really all the systems in your body, because there's a vitamin D receptor on every single cell in our body, and it really influences how our DNA performs and how our DNA is repaired. So again, cancer type of research that's done on vitamin D is very promising. Vitamin D is also very good for our immune system, for it to function properly. All the cells in our immune system, making sure that their DNA is correct so that they can perform the way we need them to perform, especially in times like this.
Yeah, well, that's
so
what you're hearing a lot. You're seeing a lot about vitamin D now, and it's just really important to take it. But if you want, I mean, Dan can come back on and another time, and he does a great segment on knowing your numbers. Again, like, it isn't just about like now being, like, let me just go out and I'm just going to get a bottle of vitamin D and like.
Right.
I mean,
it's
like,
not all the same.
And first of all, it's not all created equally. Secondly, how do you know how much you're supposed to take? There's a therapeutic amount. There's like one if you just need a little boost. I mean, you got to know.
And then depending on what your health conditions might be, your vitamin D levels should be higher than other people.
So he can come back on, and he does, like it says, you know your numbers, and
knowing your numbers,
just
so
like
important.
what numbers. I mean, anything from just like your weight and your lifestyle vital signs, your BMI, to knowing your numbers like that, your what your vitamin
your blood
D
pressure,
level,
your pulse,
right,
and even your numbers from your serum markers like your
mm-hmm.
cholesterol, your vitamin D, your C-reactive protein, your inflammatory
mm-hmm.
markers that are in your blood.
Yeah, and so somebody else asked about, was talking about extra virgin olive oil. Yes, I'm Italian. I love it. They were Greek, they said, so they use a lot of extra virgin olive oil, and I see a lot of things out there touting it as a health food, like promoting health. Does extra virgin olive oil promote health, Dan?
No, absolutely not. And if you look at, like, let's say I make a line right here, and all the good foods on this side and all the bad foods on this side, there isn't any oil that crosses that line to the good side. There are some that are better, like the extra virgin olive oil. But when you look at the blue zones, or you look at the Mediterranean diet, it's not olive oil on everything. You're talking about maybe 4 tablespoons at most for them during a day. So you're not cooking with everything on olive oil and putting it all over your salads and putting it all over your food. I mean, yes, it is fat, and it does have a lot of caloric density. 9 calories per gram versus those starchy vegetables, which are just 4 calories per gram. So yes, it does add a lot of caloric density. Yes, it has a lot of flavor. So many people love it, and it makes their foods taste better, but you just got to be careful and just use small amounts. We like to use our brush and brush it on a lot of our foods if we're air frying our vegetables, or we're cooking things in the pan on the stovetop. We just use minimal amount, maybe a half a teaspoon at a time.
But you can just try not using olive oil on certain
lots
things.
of ways to cook that way.
Because if you're cooking with it, I'm just going to challenge you, like, to try other things to cook in, like a little bit of wine, or even just steaming something in water. You can start like even like
broth, or
or a little bit of veggie broth, a veggie stock, and just to give it flavor and just to get it wet. And then what you can do is, I have a couple of amazing no oil dressing recipes. Like, you don't even need.
I think you got 1,000.
No, I do. I have like endless. But again, getting back to that 3, 4, 5, I only use like a couple in my repertoire. Always have them in the refrigerator, my go-tos. But give it a try. Like, you're gonna reduce your fat intake right there, and you're just gonna do yourself a favor all around. Again, does it mean you never can use it? No, but just giving some techniques so that you can start reducing that and then eliminate it in certain areas. You're welcome. That's great.
All right, Marina, thank you.
So we only have a couple more minutes. Why did this go by so fast?
Goes by
I didn't even get to like my air fryer. Like, if you guys have seen us on the road, we love the air fryer. The air fryer is a game changer. We can even come back at some point and do like, we can do like a whole air fryer thing. It would be so great. But that's what we do. Like, if we had done our live event, of course we would have brought our air fryer with us. And there she is. It's amazing. And we just like, the air fryer is a game changer. I'm not a big gadget person. We just have like very simple tools that we use, but the air fryer is one of those that can do some amazing things. Tasty, fast. Kids love it. They love experimenting with it. And so what else? We have only like 3 minutes left, and I feel like we have so much more that we could cover. If you guys,
keep your eye on the Facebook page, because we're going to be putting more things up on Facebook. We'll do a few more Facebook Lives.
I'm going to email everybody, and I'll let you guys know if you guys had answers. Questions. We'll get to all the answers. I will share anything that I talked about here. We talked about here tonight. We'll share any of that, resources, recipes, whatever it is that you guys want. We'll do it. You're welcome. And I just want to say too, like, we don't get any, like, there's no affiliation with any of these people that Dan talked about. Like, nobody's like, there's nothing.
These are people I just learned from.
We just love, and we just want to share.
And the food, we just enjoy eating a lot of good food.
Yeah. And so that's it. Great seeing you guys.
I'm glad you guys were here.
Yes.
And welcome to the journey.
Stay safe, and I hope you guys make a decision. I want to know about that. So we'll see you guys soon. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for coming on.
Yes.
Stay safe, guys. All right.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.